Hey everybody, it's Kathryn Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and welcome to our weekly Wednesday Webinette, Transformation by Your Command, How to Make Rapid Changes with the One Command Technique. And hello, I'm Kathryn Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and I am one of the original founders with Asara Lovejoy, who is the author and the creator of the One Command. Now, pardon the little Bob Dylan, like, hold up the sign, remember the song, and they dropped the signs down. I had this whole beautiful new technique of working with what's called the OBS, which is, if you're a tech geek, that's where you can integrate the Facebook with, let's say, your PowerPoints, or with, I work with Zoom a lot, or if you want to have your beautiful slides appear. And I've been working diligently on that, and I simply ran out of time on trying to figure out how to put the slides that I wanted to show you today into the OBS and then integrate all this new system together, and that was just making my head explode, to be honest. So we're going to do a little low-tech version of this. I do have these handouts available in the files section, which is to the left of the page here, and it's the very top one, and it says Transformation by Your Command, and it is the actual PowerPoints that I may or may not be following today. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but if there were an alternative title to today's topic, it would be how to use your whole mind to create new outcomes. You know, because there is a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in your life. There's a lot going on in consciousness that we are expanding. There's a lot happening in science that is happening so fast and expanding our capabilities that we as humans are having a little trouble catching up. And so I have some ideas that I want to share with you today on, one, how can we catch up to this rapid changing world? How can we be have an effect in the world? Like, if you think about how big the world is, the 7+ billion people on the world, and everything that's happening and all this great need, it can be really overwhelming, right? And at the same time, we have the opportunity to be a force for good and to connect with other people in a way that never existed in our history, our human history, as far as we know it, according to regular history, as far as we're able to know it, ever. Right. So this is such an exciting time. I mean, I was talking to my dad, who is 77. He's my stepdad, who's 77, about the changes in the world and the thing that's happening. And he was just marveling about, 3D printing, because he's a car buff. And he says they brought out the 3D printer, and Jay Leno showed him how they were able to, with a 3D printer, create a chain, and that chain could work right away. It wasn't just a model for them to work off of to then go take it to the forge. They were able to replicate a chain. And I said, yeah, all this Star Trek reality is, what we were envisioning is becoming our reality. The replicators are about to be happening, what they're able to do with the nanotechnology, what they're doing with, in the genes. And I said, if you think about what they can do with the 3D printer, they can, print a heart or a house. There's no limit anymore. And it's only limited by our imagination. So we have some ideas that we need to meet first if we truly want to make change in this new time. And first I want to say, hey, thank you, Kathy. I see Carlene and Simon, Linda, Mary, Alex, hey, Lucy. It's always so good to see everybody. So I'm going to be kind of going back and forth, holding up some notes here just so that you can kind of follow along if you decide to print them out or watch this later. And I have one quote that I want to use to frame today's talk, and it's Max Planck. Let's see, I have to read as I talk to you. There are realities apart from our sense perception. Max Planck, the father of quantum physics. If you ever have a chance to tune in to Max Planck and look, check him out on Wikipedia, what an amazing story of overcoming. If anyone who ever had a reason to give up, to have a really good excuse to that, on why he couldn't achieve things or what needed to happen with his thinking in order to advance science, and to find his place in the world and his meaning, right, to his life and meaning. Take a look at his biography. It's really inspiring, and I think he's one of those people that we don't hear enough about. And so he's one of those that was, along with the scientists came over with Einstein and Niels Bohr, and they were contemplating time and space and how can, what is reality and how can we measure it? How can we have an impact on it? And they were still very much in the observational and what is measurable, and they were like the grandfathers of the quantum field and thinking. And where we are now is really what happened, like what the mystics talked about. We are everything that the mystics foresaw, that science laid the groundwork for, and now we are in this new space of understanding, and we are literally at the doorstep of being able to bend time. I mean, that is amazing, because before it was, how do we measure time, which is basically a measurement of time and distance, right? Distance and speed, and then that's how we would measure it. But now they are laying out the maps of time and how do we fold time so that we can go through space. And in this exploration, they're starting to discover, because we are sensing of where we are in this next level as humans, right? There's all these things that they're starting to observe. Like, for one, that in order to make a change, it's no longer this from point A to point B and how long does it take to get there. What they are noticing in the quantum field, that as the question is formed in their mind, I wonder how long it would take this atom to get over to that atom. Before the question is fully formed, the atom pops out of one space and pops into another. Okay? The fact that we can start to observe that, anywhere, anybody observing that, this expands our capability and our perception as human beings. This is why it's important to talk about this and be aware of this, okay? The other thing that they have started to notice, and Joe Dispenza talks about this, they talked about this in What the Belief, I think, and this has shown up in several things, that in experiments across the globe, when they were checking probability, right, and what they did is they set up all these coin toss machines all around the globe, and they started kind of tracking consciousness and noticing that just before big events, probabilities of synchronicity started increasing. But then there were these coin toss machines that were locked away in a vault, and they had the measurements of them before, and they wanted to see the effect of people's thoughts and prayers and meditation and what's happening. And I don't have a resource for this. If you want one, I can look one up for you and get it for you. But what they found out was that previously recorded results were changed when they went back to look at them in these locked vaults. And that's called the mandala effect. Okay, so we're starting to notice some spooky things in our world. And when we look at that, that goes like, yeah, that's really cool, huh? How could that really make a difference in my day-to-day life? Excuse me, there's something blowing around. Let me take a little sip. And for people who have been following me around DC, I still have my rooster cup. I love my favorite cup. I'm a rooster collector, and this is one of my favorite cups. So these things are really important, and this goes back to what it is we need to know and understand in order to make positive change in our life. So the one idea that I want to impress upon you today is that you must use your whole mind to change outcomes. Okay, right now, based on how we are experiencing our life, it's very much like this. And what this is one of those hallways, a long hallway with doors. Okay, and this is a way to think about our mind, our ordinary thinking. Okay, right now, based on our family conditioning, based on what we believe to be possible on our own experience, that would determine, one, how many doors would we be willing to go through to get what we want? How many doors are we willing to open, right? Which doors are we allowed to go into? Which doors must we avoid, right? I mean, if you just think about it, if you've ever been lost in an office building, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Can I go here? Can I not go here? Oh, that's just for executives. That's not my floor. The right floor for me to get to the department that I need to go to is over here. And that's very much how the brain operates. And when we're in our ordinary thinking, the way that we know which door is our door has been based on our training. And here's the thing that we need to understand in this new world, that everything that our parents taught us, that our school taught us, that we've learned up until now has prepared us for a world that no longer exists. I mean, just think about how much has changed. And we can feel nostalgic as much as we like, but the world is a different place, and we have a whole different frame of reference. And the only way that we can really open ourselves to this new potential and to really go beyond surviving into thriving in this new world is we must expand our perception, and we've got to use our whole brain. And this is where the work of the one command comes in. So if y'all are with me so far, if you're noticing it's not the same old world anymore, right? That you have to step up. There's a new way of being. And even if you were just a younger person and you were going out into the world and you wanted to compete, there was a time that the highest compliment that could be paid you would be that you were competent. Oh, she's quite competent. They know how to follow the rules, and they can follow instructions exactly, and they're reliable, and right? They don't rock the boat. So what do we want now? Everything is ruled by disruptors. Competency is not enough. Now it's about excellence. And if you are in this group, there is something within you, in your heart, in your makeup, that is speaking to your potential for greatness in the world, that you understand that you have a greater impact just walking around in your ordinary state of being. If you're a healer or even a deep thinker, Your vibrational field is different, and you have an effect on the world around you, and the world around you affects you differently than other people. If you're a teacher and you are not teaching, you feel frustrated, you feel thwarted, you feel there's this kind of sense of guilt, right? And we don't know, where we're failing it, but we know we missed it somewhere, and that this thing inside of us is not letting us go, because the people in this group have a greater connection to source, and we could call that spirituality or consciousness or their God relationship. We could call it a lot of different things, that we have a different awareness. But if we think about consciousness, really when we're talking about consciousness, we are talking about what are we awakened to. And the people in this group are awakened to the fact that there's no such thing as a null or zero effect in the world, that you either have a positive or a negative effect on the world. And the people that I've noticed in this group that are attracted to this work have already made the decision that who they want to be, that who they're committed to becoming, and who, what they must become in order to have a sense of any fulfillment, is that they are a force for good in the world. And right now I just want to be present to you as a force for good in the world. And right now, just notice and experience yourself being seen and known that way. I want to invite you to open your mind and drop the defenses. Open your heart to that truth that you've suspected all along, that you have hoped that someone would speak to you, because it speaks on your heart every day. And today's lesson is for you. Okay? So we have some ideas that we want to introduce today, and I'm just going to go over those very quickly. One, that in this field of consciousness, if we want to truly make change, we've got to release ourselves from judgment. And it comes down to this, that nothing is inherently good or bad within itself. There are only considerations and outcomes, and no matter what we're going through, we don't know what good can ultimately come from our experiences. This is a really powerful way of thinking, and believe me, I feel very deeply when there's injustices in the world, when there is pain and loss, when there's suffering. I feel it personally very deeply. But if we move back into consciousness, we can't know what good could ultimately arrive from this. And that's the position that we need to hold. There's a famous story that speakers love to tell and teachers love to tell about the farmer. And things were going really well in his life. And he had a fine son and a fine farm. And people would say, wow, you are so lucky. And he says, well, maybe not. And as his prosperity grew, he started adding different things. He had his cows, that herd grew, and then he had horses, and that grew, and he came to be known as kind of famous for the quality of horses in the area. And people will be like, oh, so lucky. You're so fortunate. Well, maybe not. And one day his son was out riding one of the horses and broke his leg. And his friends wanted to come and comfort him, going, oh, we're so sorry that your son has broken his leg. What a bad turn. He says, well, maybe not. And a few days later, there was a unit of soldiers that came through, and they were recruiting. And they came and they saw all the horses, and they took all the horses. They saw all the cattle, They came and took all the cattle. And then they saw the orchards, and they went through and they plundered the orchards, but they did not take the son. And they said, oh no, what terrible luck. They've taken all your work. They took all your land. They took the fruit of your labor. And he says, maybe, maybe not. But then after the war came the time for recompense, and came the time that the government said, well, you know, you were one of the people that had to pay a great price for the war, and our enemy is having to repay to you everything that was lost. And so we are sending you money, we are sending you a herd of horses, and we're sending you the cows and laborers to come help you rebuild the farm. And everybody's like, wow, you are so fortunate. And the farmer said, maybe, maybe not. And so no matter what he met in life, calamity or blessings, he knew that his life was long, and that ultimately his job was to just do his best and to count his blessings when he had them, and hold the space for the blessings to return. And sometimes that's all we can do. But we must detach from this good or bad way of thinking, because when you are in a difficult circumstance, it's really easy to think that you've done something wrong, that you're bad, that you'll never get it. And that starts putting you into a defensive, smaller, more narrow way of thinking. And so you've got to just allow yourself to move up into the observer, into a higher way of thinking. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. How can we get into that higher, greater way of thinking so that we can see the bigger picture? Okay. Number 2 is, thank you for your patience as I hand these out, as I put these out. Number 2, we are designed to thrive. Our ability to thrive is determined by our ability to adapt, and through conscious cooperation. You know, they finally figured out why humans were able to survive, and like our, you know, planning, and there's all of this. But the first thing that when they said what survives, what didn't survive, what was our competitive edge, and it was when we first were able to look up and above and start watching out for each other. Okay, we found through cooperation and getting into tribes of support that we were greater together. Okay, but we also had an extraordinary ability to adapt to our environment. And this is what is up, and this is what's causing a lot of issues, is that people are not willing necessarily to adapt to the new world. And it's hard to let go of ideas. It's hard to, you know, I'm older, and I still notice that there's things that I'm fixed on. And in fact, I was talking to my daughter the other day about someone that we've had a relationship with in the past, and it's like, yeah, it's really difficult to deal with that person, because right or wrong, once he gets locked onto something, you can't move him off of it. He won't listen at all, even once you've showed him he's wrong, right? And our unconscious mind is like that, because we have a good reason to believe what we believe. We may think that our history supports what we would call facts, and why we are this way, right? Why we must stay this way, why we can't trust, why we can't try new things. And it's real easy to judge others who maybe are not as flexible on some points. But I had to, you know, I told my daughter, I said, you know, the only reason I know that that's true about him is because I know I get fixed. If I believe that I'm right, and I see it, I feel it, and there's that, I get that kind of signal inside my body that this is right, it's really hard to move me off, right? But I have to be willing to be wrong. And what has saved my relationships and my obstinate way of being is my ability to admit when I'm wrong. I got to share a really quick little story about something that just happened this weekend. We had all the family down, and my daughter went home Sunday night, and I'm on a new plan where I'm doing the low carb eating. But, it was a holiday weekend, so we went ahead and we had a cheat weekend, and then it's like, okay, it's time to get back on. And I'm thinking, well, what do I want for dinner now? It's Sunday night, and we've had all the hamburgers and hot dogs and all the junk food, and I don't really feel like cooking, and I'm going, what do I want to eat? And then I think Chinese buffet. I want to go to Chinese buffet. And I go, oh, no, Chinese buffet. Just for me alone, I don't really want to go spend $15 for dinner. I mean, because I'm not eating that much. So buffets are kind of wasted on me. I wanted something simple for dinner. Well, maybe I'll go to the cafeteria. Maybe I'll just go get some salad, go to the store, get some chicken and salad. And this was just like hammering in my head, China buffet. And I go, no, I don't really want China buffet. Maybe I'll go eat pho noodles. No, that's carbohydrates. I don't want that. So I had this back and forth. Then my daughter called and said, Mom, I have a flat tire. Can you come pick us up? And I said, sure. She said, Maddie, my granddaughter's hungry right now, and the China buffet's across the street. So we're going to go ahead and walk across to the China buffet and have dinner. Why don't you come have dinner with us, and then we'll take care of the tire. So sometimes our inner wisdom and our guidance is telling us, and we argue with it. But, I didn't make a decision. I didn't make myself wrong because I wanted to have some China buffet. It wouldn't make sense that I'd want something quick and easy. But we must expand our consciousness. Our mind is trained to eliminate. And we have this thing called consciousness bias, right? Where everything we experience is designed to match what we are ready to believe to be true, which is a big problem with why we are getting so divided, because it's feeding into our fears and our secret beliefs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I know I've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to go fast, but we must expand our consciousness. And when we are expanding our consciousness, we are raising our vibration, and we are increasing our ability to perceive, one, what the truth is. We are able to perceive what is the best course of action because we're looking in this bigger picture. But we are also able to perceive some other potential outcomes, and we're able to perceive these other realities and move into these. We're able to be more empathetic and to adopt other viewpoints so that we can have greater understanding. One, not just so that we can go get them and win, right? But it's actually would be more valuable so that we can create a greater census, so we can create an alignment. Hey, find out what is it you actually want in all this stuff that you're doing. Here's what I actually want, and how can we co-create something together? Conscious cooperation, right? Thriving comes through adaptability. So when we are able to expand our consciousness and shift our positioning so that we can allow new viewpoints and perceptions, and this actually starts turning on and activating new skills, abilities, and resources within us that are lying dormant at a very deep level. I mean, that even makes sense anyway. Like sometimes you don't know what you're capable of until you're put into a new situation, right? Like you may not know that you're naturally a teacher until you're given the opportunity to teach. And up until that moment that maybe you're thrust into the position of being a teacher, if someone said, would you like to be a teacher? You'd go, oh, hell no. I don't want to be a teacher, based on what your beliefs and ideas about teachers and your own past experiences with teachers and what the role is of teachers and how well teachers get paid, right? But there's a lot of ways to be a teacher, and you didn't know about your inherent abilities to teach until you were put into that, or to lead, or to heal, or to inspire, or to solve problems, or fill in the blank. Okay, so this is what we're talking about when we say we must move beyond what our mind can conceive, because what our mind can conceive is really putting together everything that we know up until now, and we can arrange it in infinite ways. I mean, just think about how, like they haven't even been able to calculate how many potential combinations of playing cards can happen. Like if you were to shuffle a deck, they're still trying to figure out the infinite possibility of the probabilities of certain card arrangements, right? I mean, if that's just a deck of playing cards, think about this big playing field that we're on, okay? So we have to be able to use our whole mind, okay? And this is where we get into the brainwave talks. And excuse me. If you've been around the one command for very long, excuse me, then you know that we talk about going into theta a lot. So in the handout, I have a little piece about what are the brain waves, and basically it's a measurement of frequency, okay? And in our ordinary thinking, we are right up here in this beta brainwave. Okay, and it's measured in hertz, like radio waves. And this is our awake, normal state of being. Now, here's the thing to know about brainwaves too. We are not all in only one brainwave at any time, at any given time. We are experiencing multiple brainwaves in different parts of the brain. That's how they measure the activity. And the one that ties it all together is the gamma brainwaves. Okay, so we haven't talked a lot about gamma, but in the handout we list what the different, you love this, the different brainwaves are. So in the handout we talk about alpha, and this is usually if we are in our ordinary thinking, we're in beta, we're awake, we're alert, and we are aware of 7 to 9 things at any given moment, and everything else we start to delete. And we are, though, tracking at an unconscious level, and we can start to become aware of it through symbols and activate different things through memories and images and this type of thing. And so that's the alpha brainwave. So we're a little more relaxed. And when we're watching TV or listening to the radio, like I listen to podcasts all the time, we're in that alpha brainwave. And so we're very open and receptive. We're not really judging. We're just accepting whatever information comes in. And it's very impressed with symbols, tradition. Like if we see somebody on TV, we assume they're more important than us. And so that's why numbers matter, and rank and insignias and all of that anchors us into hierarchies and all of that. So the alpha brainwave is the way that we have conversations with ourselves about our outer relationship. Here's a way to think about that, right? Through what is the symbol? What is that? What is the representation? And that information is delivered to you through visualization and when we're going on our reveries, okay? All right, so then let's say we've gone from alpha and then the brainwave drops. That's when we are in our deep cycle of that delta brainwave, and that is like that deep restorative sleep, and the brain has pretty much gone offline, and there's some other chemicals and things that are kicking in so that it quiets the mind so the body can do all of its offline healing work, okay, and restoration, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to knit back together your muscles and heal your body and process your food and all of this, okay? So this is what's happening, and we have to be able to do have these delta cycles a minimum of 3 times a night for about 45 minutes at a time. And if we aren't having those, then we experience sleep deprivation. And there are a lot of people, and especially in the United States, that we are in chronic sleep deprivation, which is why you see people taking naps everywhere as much as possible, because we're overstimulated all the time. We've got all this electricity, and we just are not giving ourselves enough time to really rest. We're out of our regular circadian cycle. We are not going to sleep a few hours after dark anymore. We're not waking up at sunrise. And so there's a lot of problems that are being caused at the mental level, just a simple lack of sleep, which creates overeating and more stress and anxiety. And it just sets us up for this whole other realm of issues. Then as we're coming in and out of wakefulness, right, we are starting to process and we go into the theta brainwave. Now, it says here that there's reduced consciousness, deep meditation, dreams, light sleep, REM sleep. So it's very visual. Our eyes are doing the kind of flickering, right? But it says reduced consciousness, deep meditation. Well, deep meditation is focus, right? We're able to super focus, and we're starting to have a new conversation with ourselves about our potential. I don't know if this happens to you. Asara was sharing this with me the other day, and she said it's so interesting because I feel like I'm teaching, like all my dreams are these teaching dreams, but there's this new information comes in. And I said, well, that would make sense because we are talking about a new course that we want to create. And I said, I think you're laying it out in your mind. But I said, every time I'm ready to teach something new, I start having a lot of dreams where I'm teaching and instructing, and there's someone I'm talking to about it on the phone, and I'm waking up going, wow, why didn't I, why couldn't I record that? The day that we can start plugging those USBs into our brains, I would love to record some of my dreams because I have really entertaining dreams. But what they discovered in the theta brainwave, and Elmer Green and the Manager Clinic did a ton of studies on this, on people with extraordinary abilities. What they found when people went into these extraordinary states, that their brain waves dropped into this lower, slower theta state. And then not only were they able to accomplish incredible feats, like when you see the monks sitting in the snow and they're not cold. One, their body temperature is still warm, even though they're outside, but then they're actually causing the snow to melt a little bit around them just through meditation, or the people who cut themselves and they're able to start and stop bleeding. I've worked with healing, and I remember one time I scraped my hand really. Oh, no, it wasn't me. I did scrape my hand one time and I got hurt, but a friend of mine I was working with, she scraped her hand on the brick as she was going around outside, and it was really stinging. And I said, oh, well, let me help you with that. And I laid my hand on it and I said, oh, you're gonna be fine. I told it to heal, and it said, okay. And she said, all right, whatever, that's interesting. And then just as she was walking away, all of a sudden I felt a scrape and a tingle on my hand. And I looked at it, and then I caught her in my eye, and she looked back and she was looking at her hand. She said, what did you do to my hand? She said, there's no scrape. And she had scraped it quite badly. Okay. So there was this field of agreement that we entered into. And because of my belief, I said, oh, let's heal. And the hand said, okay, right? So I created this space of cooperation between us, and the body agreed, even though the mind wasn't quite ready. Okay. So in this space, what they found out was it's easier. Our regular conditioning is temporarily offline so that this new idea can come in. And as this new idea comes in, it is accepted, and then it gets activated and normalized all the way down. And this is why the visualization and speaking the words is so important. This is what's so powerful about the one command technique is, one, we are not hoping for an outcome. We've made a decision for an outcome. We are in cooperation with our environment and all of creation for it to occur. Okay? So If you are hoping for a new outcome and you keep trying to say these magic words to make something happen, you are not coming from a position of your inherent authority in the planet as a creator. You are not coming from the position of one who is designed to thrive. You are not coming from the position of one who has the power to increase their perception and have a new idea of what's possible. You are operating from someone who is at the effect of the world around them and the effect of circumstances. So right now, I just want to invite you to make a decision right now. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be a conscious creator? Or do you want to be the one at the effect of your world and your environment? And again, it's not wrong either way. So type in what your answer is. Do you want to come from the aspect of one who is the conscious creator or the one who is at the effect? And if you've decided, say, I decided. Okay? Great. And then what we're able to do with the gamma brainwave, what the gamma does is, the different parts of our, brain hold different bits of information. And it's the gamma brain waves that tie all of it together. Like here I have my beautiful rooster cup, and you can tell by the shape of it, the handle, that it's a cup. You see the colors, and hey, I have a story about this cup and how I came to be, in possession of this cup and what that moment meant to me. I have all the mornings that I got to have the enjoyment of it, but I also have the function of the cup. I know where it goes in the kitchen. I know where it is when I'm moving. I know that if I wanted to eat ice cream out of it, I can drink coffee or tea or water out of it, but it's not really the best vessel for me to eat dinner out of, right? Just the use. So there's all this, and then there's all these billions of bits of information that are contained within this object and the rules around it and everything else. And all those bits of information are contained within my brain. And if you were here from another planet, there is a lot more that I would have to explain to you about this vessel that I'm holding in my hand because of the base of knowledge where that we have in our agreed upon reality and our shared history as human beings, that there's a lot that I don't have to explain to you about cups in order to say this is my favorite cup. Okay. But to someone in another realm, they would need a lot of information to really grasp the meaning of this object to me and why it's my go-to cup, right? Why this would matter to me above other vessels that look really similar in my cabinet, right? So there's this whole other base of knowledge. So all of that's contained within our brain and in our collective brain that we have as a species, right? And this is stored in different levels of our biology through our neurology and all the way down to a DNA level in our DNA encoding and the field of energy that surrounds the DNA strand called the morphogenic field. Wow. Like, why does that matter? Well, that matters because once you start understanding to the degree that you are holding stories and traditions and your habits, not only your habits of action, but your habits of thinking, your emotional habits, the patterns, the family patterns. Once you start understanding to the depth that this is held, then you're starting to understand to the depth that you must be able to perceive in order to truly make the change that you want to be in the world. Not just the effect that you want to have on the world, but the change you want to be and create in the world, right? So this is why this matters, because our mind creates reality. What you have in your life now is a reflection of what you have brought into matter by your own thinking. And you might say, well, I can't help who's coming into my life, and there's this random stuff. But it's interesting that there are certain people, if you've met them, that they seem to have a lot of the same similar random experiences over and over again. I have personally never even come close to ever being in a situation where I got run over by a train or was ever in danger of being hit by a train. And I have a friend who has literally been hit by a train 4 different times. And no, she's not as, there's nothing wrong with her thinking. It's somehow in her experience, this has got set up. And this is some level of her expectancy in the world. And what's interesting is not only has she been hit by a train, but she has been blindsided and knocked around really hard by life, more than most people. So the only thing that she and I would have in common is thinking and how we create our reality. And, I have a personal belief, and I don't know if this is true, but I just think it's true. So, and it works for me to think this right now, that there are many possibilities occurring at the same time. And based on my level of consciousness and what I expect to be true and what I'm actively seeking and unconsciously and unconsciously creating, this would narrow the field out of all the potential that's happening into what I am going to be experiencing right now. But what is just as true, that there is another experience, another level of consciousness where I'm having a whole other experience. So what I do is like, wow, this is really interesting that I'm having this experience. But so often we are not aware of our own experience. We are only in reaction to our experience. So when we go into the theta brainwave, when we consciously make the decision that we are a creator, and we use the tool of going into the theta brainwave using the 1 command technique, where we walk you through the 6-step process, and then we issue this statement from this point of decision, right, and this shared point of view about us being conscious creators, that we've made a decision for an outcome. Even though we don't know how we get that outcome, we only declare it to be so now. When we slow it down, we erase the other possibilities. And then your unconscious mind and your environment start speaking to you in a different way. And you start having new conversations with people, and opportunities start arriving from new places. Things start forming and creating and discreating and recreating. And so we are always creating from the unknown. And it's from the unseen, the unknown, that you create and manifest any experience or physical matter, such as money, before it becomes the seen and the known. And it's from the place from which your desires exist as pure energy in their highest expression, before you have a conscious awareness in your human brain, before you bring it into your conscious awareness. So what that's talking about is, hey, like we might call that faith, where there's something in us that knows before we know. Okay. And it's very much, this is evidence, like, let's say that when we've made the decision to move our arm, our brain is already sending the signal out, and we are reaching even before we have thought about it. It's the same thing that I talked about at the beginning, when we had started to form this idea that what would it look like if that molecule moved from point A to point B, and it moves. We have to allow ourselves to be in that not knowing how, just knowing that it is. And so when we're dealing with our brain waves, we need to understand that our brain waves reflect the many dimensions of who we are. You are more than your job. You are more than your role in your life. You are something even greater. And when you start to expand your awareness and raise your consciousness, you start becoming more aware of the different parts of who you are. I got to listen to a beautiful talk by TD Jakes. He's the famous preacher. And he was saying, well, right now, this is my granddaddy talking to you. And oh, sometimes my grandma talks to me. Sometimes that's my daddy. And sometimes that's my wife. And he's speaking to these different parts of him that really took the lesson and the learning and, you know, what was passed through him. And so he is embodying all of these lessons through, you know, and he sees them like his personalities, right? All aspects of him. All of these relationships, all these experiences make him, and he realizes the difference between his own voice and the voice of the one who taught him. And this is what we are able to do when we start really and truly connecting with the truth of who we are. We start hearing our own authentic voice. Now, one of the reasons, too, that's important to know about brainwaves and consciousness is, this is from our friend Richard Dawkins, and the levels of consciousness, and we start asking better questions. And we start coming from a, when we ask questions, it's from a more empowered state to come up with a greater solution. Remember, we are designed to thrive, not just survive. And so as we advance our thinking, our solution, you know, we become solution oriented rather being a problem solver. Because if we identify as a problem solver or an overcomer of problems, guess what we have to have in order to know ourselves? More problems, right? So if we identify ourselves as a conscious creation, as one who's able to create, you know, solutions and new outcomes by our command, then what's going to come our way? More opportunities. And we start meeting challenges as opportunities, as growth or expansion, or hey, now we've realized that we're at the end of a paradigm and now it's time for new questions and new ways of being. Okay, so there's two models. I'm not going to get to go over them right now just for time, but I'm going to be talking more about this, and I've talked about this in some of the past videos, so you can look them up. But one way, the simplest way of thinking is, when you're a conscious creator, you think about where you are now and where you want to be, right? And so usually where we focus our energy is on what's stopping us. And we call that a consideration. Like, oh, I need to make, you know, I need to make more money, right? Oh, well, why don't you just go make more money? Well, I can't because I've got my car, or because of where I live, or the economy, or I just can't even think of another way to make money beyond what I'm doing right now, right? My intuition is not speaking to me about call up so-and-so because they've got my money, or it's not directing me to a place where bank robbers hid $10,000 that I need under a rock. For some reason, I'm not getting that information. So we have this belief about what's stopping us. This belief, you know, you need to understand one, why we talk about not judging about where you are or the problem is, where you are now, you've really got to be in a neutral state of mind and going, you know, I don't know why I created this or how I created this. I only know that I'm taking ownership of this now. And just as I created the situation I'm in now, I have the power to create something else. I mean, isn't that more powerful than being a victim of your circumstances? I went through a really tragic experience in my life, and a lot of people wanted me to be a victim. And I said, I refuse to be a victim. I'm not going to speak victim language, and I'm not going to even seek help from people who help people who are victims of things. Like, I mean, I was really stubborn on it. And they're like, why don't you go to get help? I said, no, I know I need help, but I am going to be better because of this situation. I'm going to be stronger because of this situation. And I'm going to help more people than I ever dreamed possible because of this situation. And I need someone who can help me get to be that person. And I told everyone that, and everyone told me how I was in denial, and I should just accept that I'm a victim and let myself get some loving and get some caring and nurturing and that type of thing. That it wasn't until I got to meet someone who had gone through what I had gone through, and she was able to speak the truth about, one, how I got there, completely acknowledged it, and then started really speaking my language about the greatness that was within me, and that there was a solution, and I had more power than I knew. And she spent like one day, I mean, I think we were on the phone one day, 8 hours, and I could not even tell you her name, but that woman changed my life. And because of that experience, I knew that that's who I wanted to be in the world. Okay. And I absolutely did get through that situation in record time, and the angels and the gods and fairies and what forces may be all started aligning and working, and something amazing came out of that experience. Okay. I want you to know the same is true for you, whatever you're going through. And we have this idea about what's stopping us. It may or may not be true. It could be just as true that what I love is the obstacle is the way. But if we have this idea about what's stopping us, when we use the one command, I don't know how I achieve what I want, I only know it's so, it shifts our focus over into that which we want, and it neutralizes what we think the block is. And it redirects our mind to get to what it is, the outcome that we want. And it starts solving the problem for us. Okay. Now, there are some other considerations. I've shared this in the one command circles. Sometimes we have some other blocks. We aren't aware of what, challenges. We have our beliefs about obstacles, but we may have a secret fear, or we may have a secret desire that could be working for us or against us. And sometimes we need someone to work with to help us identify, because we have these different levels of our thinking that could actually be hindering us, and that we don't want to be seen as greedy or mean, or have the idea that we'd have to, in order for us to get our needs met, we have to take away from someone else, which is absolutely not true. That is a lower vibration of thinking. The ideal solution is one that the solution works so well that it serves more good in its fulfillment. And this is what we talk about with the one command. When we say go into the 6 steps, we bring you present to here and now through grounding. Then we align you to your purpose. Then when we say go to theta, we are motor driving you to lowering your brain wave by directing your eyes up to mimic what happens in sleep. And that allows your mind to quiet down. Then we state the one command. And then we have this experience called expanding. That is that idea even greater, that serves more good. And this is where we're actually expanding our consciousness. And then we begin to consciously receive. Receiving is not a passive act. It is a very active act. And so what we are teaching you by taking you through the 6 steps of theta with the one command is to how to motor drive your brain into creating these solutions and finding the solution, but not only just say what's out there, how can I get it, but to literally create out of nothing the right solution that serves you in the highest and greatest good, and for it to come back in a way that is in alignment with your soul's purpose, your skills, abilities, and attributes. Okay, so, and we are, in a state of gratitude and appreciation all, through the whole thing. So if you've been part of the group, you already are very familiar with the one command statement. The reason that this works is, as I said before, we have made the decision in advance that this is happening. We're not asking, we're not wishing, we're not hoping. We said, this is what I want, and we're stating it clearly. So I don't know how. I have $100,000 in my bank account. I only know I do now, and I am fulfilled, right? And then I only know it is so now, and I am fulfilled. And the reason we use that "and I am fulfilled" statement is so that the experience that you're going through is worth it. Okay, so when we're in the state of fulfillment, we know that there's going to be challenges, there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be times of growth, and sometimes those growth spurts, those learning curves are a little rough. right? Especially when we're shifting out of a lower form of consciousness and we're having to give up our old identity and we're going through that big neurological shift. But if we connect into this state of fulfillment, then that gives us the courage and the strength to keep moving through because we know it'll be worth it. Okay. Now, in the One Command, we always talk about the 7th step, and that is inspired action. And what we're telling you to do with inspired action is to be ready for that idea, that inspiration, or that opportunity that matches what you said, and then you can just go for it. You know, I have a natural ability to facilitate meetings, and there's a lot of work that I've done kind of like for different groups and businesses, but I've never necessarily advertised it. And I recently had a business contact me and said, "Oh, would you come in and facilitate this meeting?" And at first I was like, that's not my website or necessarily my resume. And then at first I was going to go, no, but then I had been actually commanding for some opportunities in this new sector of business. So I just had to say, okay, it's an open door, even though it feels uncomfortable, even though I may have to do a little learning to kind of shift, you know, how I format and do my presentations, some languaging. This is absolutely in alignment with what I've been commanding for. And so I said yes before I actually felt ready. And I've had to battle my mind and my emotions a little bit. I'm just being transparent. It's just you and me talking, right? So I've had to do a command going, wow, I don't know how. I absolutely know on every level of my being that I am the right person. And I know what I must learn and and how I must adapt in order to thrive in this environment. I only know I am thriving now. Okay, so be willing to say yes to that. That's a little bit outside because we never know how those doors of opportunity are going to lead to other doors and what the learning and the blessing is. Okay, woo, woo. That's a lot. This is going to be available by replay. And if you have any questions about what I've talked about today, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the thread and I'll be answering. Let me take another sip. Excuse me. Woohoo! And my feed just froze for a second. One thing I want to let you know about where we really are going to be going deep into these principles is on September 21st. I'm going to be hosting a one-day virtual boot camp. It's from 10 in the morning Central to 5 p.m. The whole thing's is recorded, but this is a live interactive class where we are going to be going deeper into the teaching of the One Command, the different kinds of commands that you can format, how to train your brain, and then we're going to be doing live demonstrations and answering your questions in direct. So September 21st, and I'm going to tell you, I've taken many of these classes many times, and every class I ever got, you know, the wonderful thing about the One Command is you continue to learn and grow with it. I've been working with the One Command since 2005. I am still learning and discovering new things myself as I apply it and learn about things about myself and positioning and consciousness. So even if you may have taken that class or you go, oh, I'm in the circles, Kathryn explained a lot of that, I really want to encourage you to go ahead and commit to the one day. I have really done this at a deep discount. It's less than half than if we were to teach this live. So be sure and tune into that. I've got listed in the events, and I did post in the discussion, which will probably be just below here, the newest update of how to register for that class. And then, of course, here's my big smiling mug. Be sure and check out our Monday Money Mindset Mastery Well Circle. That's every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And if you want to have some help in uncovering some of these hidden things that are blocking you from being the conscious creator and keeping you from moving into your right position, then contact me. And I work with people one-on-one, and I work in a way that we focus on one clear outcome. What is that measurable success? I really don't believe in just like, hey, let's just meet every week and we'll clear, because it's not in the clearing, it's in the creation. So if you want to connect with me, you can either send an email to me to thebigvisioncoach@gmail.com, or connect at the Big Vision Coach, or just shoot me a message here through Facebook. And I think that covers all the slides. Woo, we did it, guys. So thank you so much. This concludes our Wednesday Webinette, Transformation by Your Command, how to make rapid changes with the one command technique. And I hope to see you in the Tuesday night circles, and I hope that you'll be joining me on the one-day boot camp on the 21st. So until next time, this is Kathryn Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and I witness your mastery. Mwah. Bye-bye, everybody.